Hi everyone, I'm Joseph Cox. I'm going to do my exemplification speech for English 101, Professor Brenda Stevens, Anderson University. I know everybody has heard about the separation of church and state, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about that today and how it's just a bad thing for our nation as far as what it has evolved into. When the founding fathers wrote the Constitution, the First Amendment, it was broken into two parts. The first half regards to the freedom of religion, and the second half is the freedom of speech. Well, we're going to focus on the first half. If you know the Constitution, you'll know right off the bat that the First Amendment starts off. It says the Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And what that means is Congress, government, however you want to look at it, can put no law into effect for one religion. They can't tell us as a people, hey, you're going to be Baptist or you're going to be Catholic or you're going to be, Presbyterian or whatever. That's freedom of religion. That's why we broke away from England in the beginning. And that was set for. That was the very first amendment in the Constitution, is that the government has no right to say what religion we can and can't practice. Now, what that has turned into is that government has no place in religion whatsoever. And the people of our country, as far as some of the liberals that decide to stick their nose in everybody's business, have filed suit against the government saying, hey, we don't want any part of religion in government. There could be the Ten Commandments can't hang on the wall of a courthouse, or there can be no prayer before a Senate meeting or a meeting of the House of Representatives, which is just a horrible thing. Especially whenever it comes down to small towns like your small school districts or town hall meetings and stuff like that have always began their meetings with prayer, and then you get some huge lawsuit filed against them because somebody doesn't like the fact that a prayer is being said, whether denominational or not. Now, like I said, the opening statement of the Constitution says that the government can't take that place. What was meant by that and how it was interpreted is exactly how I described earlier, is that there should be a wall in front of Congress keeping them from making a law that says, hey, you have to be one religion. In 1947, that wall grew even taller whenever a school board approached Congress and said, hey, there's no need for religion anywhere. And as everybody knows, that has turned into a downward spiral in this country ever since. From the terrorist attacks to bad meats to bad, viruses that are killing people off left and right. The debt ceiling is a constant issue now. If you look at it, it is essentially Rome falling over a slow period of time. And if you look also at how the country is ran, it's essentially like the people of the United States have turned it into a modern day Sodom and Gomorrah. For anybody who doesn't know that story, Sodom and Gomorrah was essentially a small town in the Middle East that everybody was free to do what they wanted to. They drank, they had sex in the street with whoever they felt like, man, woman, goat, donkey, it didn't matter. And in the end, God destroyed that city because of the perversions and sin that had been taking place in there. And that's essentially what's going to happen to the United States if we don't bring God back into our lives and back into this country, and look for the guidance from the Bible to take steps forward in making things better than they were. Look also, for further confirmation of what I'm referring to, you look at Exodus in chapters 7 through 11, the 10 plagues that went through Egypt whenever Pharaoh was in control. Moses went in there trying to free his people from the tyranny of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh thought that he was God and that he had to answer to no one. Well, in the end, he answered with the loss of his son and then the loss of his troops whenever Moses and the Egyptians and the Jews made their exodus out of Egypt, with the parting of the Red Seas. Everybody's familiar with that story. The current administration, as well as past administrations, have kind of pulled a Pharaoh, and they've ignored God's word and done everything they want to do on their own account. And that's foolish. They've taken, and God has extended His hand by way of the founding fathers, and said, hey, this is what needs to be done. Here's the outline, and the previous administrations all the way through the current have slapped it away and said, nah, we don't need that, we're good. So, in closing, you look at that, and the past shortcomings as well as future failures that are going to happen are just obviously apparent. Excuse me. Ronald Reagan said it best that a democracy will not and cannot long endure without God. That was said at a national prayer breakfast back in the early 80s. And, that's flat out the way it is. I mean, whether it's a democracy, a constitutional republic, a dictatorship, or anything, if there's no God to follow, if you're not taking God into account and saying, we need to follow his rules and regulations and, the path that he set forward, then in the end, God is going to destroy you. You're going to fall. Couldn't be more truer than what's said in the 33rd Psalm. Happy is a nation whose God is Lord. The people he has chosen to be his own possession. And, our nation is definitely in trouble. And the only hope that America has is, to turn back to God and follow his leadership and his principles. I hope you've enjoyed what I've put out for you today. And, maybe you'll go dig a little deeper into the Bible and into the Constitution to understand what I have explained to you today. Thank you for your time.